Hi, I'm Mayor Matt Larson, and this is the second of a two-part series on growth and economic development in the city of Snoqualmie. This second part focuses primarily on economic development. Economic development is something that's not altogether understood by many folks. Some confuse it with shop local type programs. The difference with the shop local programs is it's a wonderful thing to do, but all we're doing is recirculating the same money in our community. Economic development is about trying to find purposes and uses that will bring additional monies or import money from outside the community into the community to make us a stronger and more thriving community. One of the challenges that Snoqualmie Ridge had that happened 15 years or so ago under a prior administration is that they succumbed to the pressure to size down the amount of retail. And the original mixed-use final plan for Snoqualmie Ridge, the retail area, was originally zoned to be about twice the size that we currently see. And to put that in perspective, the current area that you do see, if you added up all the buildings there, would add up to about 120,000 square feet, and that's equal to one Target store in Issaquah, which on a square foot basis, it makes about half the revenue that a Target store does. So we were essentially crippled in terms of our capacity to provide a more diverse revenue stream for the city of Snoqualmie. And to put that in perspective, one of the problems it created is we have a huge leakage, what's known as a leakage problem. One study we did several years ago showed that annually our residents spend about $82 million on retail expenditures, and of that, $60 million goes out of the city of Snoqualmie. Basically what that means is for every dollar that our resident spends, 73 cents of that goes out of the city of Snoqualmie to North Bend and primarily Issaquah. And to put that in perspective, for a typical Issaquah resident, for every dollar that they spend, not only do they capture the full dollar in Issaquah, but another $1.40 comes in from outside of their city. So for a $2.40 capture rate versus our leakage rate. So it affords an opportunity for a city like Issaquah to provide a lot of services without more pressure on property taxes and so forth. And the result for us, of course, is a tremendous pressure. You can see from this pie chart that we have the gray area on the pie chart is right now a little over 47%, and at full build out will be over 50% of our revenue stream will be dependent on property taxes, and another 17% from utility taxes on your cell phone bill, on your cable bill, on your water and sewer utilities, that all that helps support the general fund. So it's close to 67% of our revenue stream comes out of your pocket, and our goal over the last decade has been to try to diversify that to take that pressure off. One of the other challenges we've had is for the past decade, we've been working as we come to the full build out of Snoqualmie Ridge to make sure that we achieve what we call fiscal sustainability. In other words, that there's a lot of one-time revenues from growth, all the growth and development, and when the growth and development, all that one-time revenue goes away. And we have to make sure that the operations of the city can be dependent on the reoccurring ongoing revenues to make sure that we're fiscally sustainable at that time, so we don't have to keep chasing additional growth. And we did an exercise recently that said, let's take the last bit of one-time revenues out of our budget to see where we are as we approach the full build out of Snoqualmie Ridge over the next year and a half. And we see that we still have about $1 million gap, which is a long way, a better achievement from where we were 12 years ago when over half the budget was dependent on property taxes. Half the budget was dependent on one-time revenues. And so out of a $14 million budget, at least it's closed down to about $1 million. And I want to speak to some of the projects that we specifically are pursuing that we feel are consistent with our community values in order to achieve closing that gap. And by the way, this gap doesn't assume any staffing increases as our city's grown, as there's an increased demand on services. And that's why we're very thankful the voters supported a levy lid lift in November that helped us hire 2 more police officers and another firefighter. So one of the huge advantages for Snoqualmie, or one of the disadvantages geographically, is that North Bend grabs all of the retail to the market to the east outside of their city limits, and of course everything to the west goes to Issaquah. So we're really limited to a local market and can't tap into much of a regional market. So there simply isn't a big demand for retail or demand that can support retail, such as big box retail, nor would we frankly want that in Snoqualmie. We wouldn't want Walmarts and Home Depots. It's not consistent with our values of this spectacular, unique place we live in. And so the strategy that we've focused on is the fact that we have this incredible Snoqualmie Falls with 2 million visitors a year to the falls. We have the Northwest Railway Museum that we've done a great deal of work over the past 10 years to partner with the museum to do improvements there to make that a world-class museum. Their visitorship has gone from in the range of 40,000 a year to well over 100,000 visitors a year to the museum. We have national exposure for a small town of us on TV with things like the Boeing Classic, that's broadcast nationally, the Treehouse Masters program on Animal Planet, the Twin Peaks show that's just come out again, and also the Global Rallycross that's broadcast once a year on NBC, both nationally and globally. But the problem with a lot of this tourist activity that we have is we don't do an effective job of capturing those tourist dollars. And part of the strategy of capturing those dollars is to focus on more destination things like the Railway Museum or the mill site development. The type of activity we want to see around there is something like what you see in Woodinville, a type of tourist industry that's all built around wineries and wine tasting and wine processing, and that's our goal for there. So we're actually grabbing some of those visitors from the falls and bringing them over so they leave more dollars in town. And another key or critical strategy for tourism is overnight or lodging, a full spectrum and menu of lodging and hotels. Because with an overnight guest, we get 4 to 5 times more revenue that's left in our city than we do with a drive-through visitor. And the powerful thing about tourist dollars is they're the best kind of money to get because they leave money behind and they don't demand more schools or more parks and more police and fire services. And so it's the best kind of money to have. One of the ways that we rectify this to find land for that available, or to rectify what happened years ago when the retail area was shrunk down in size on Snoqualmie Ridge, was the council a few years back went across the parkway and we added additional zoning in what you see as these now red boxes here on just those lots on the Snoqualmie edge of the Snoqualmie Parkway, and we allowed for a retail zoning on those lots. Unfortunately, the developer would not take away the warehouse and commercial uses from those lots, so we said fine, we're going to leave the 50-foot buffer there to assure those uses don't get built. However, if you bring a retail use like the grocery store, the Bartels, the new Mod Pizza, or a hotel, then we will allow you to use that buffer to encroach in the 50-foot buffer. So it was a huge incentive to get the retail that we felt we needed, and the lodging. And for those that might think, hey, we get that a hotel was needed, but it should have been somewhere else. As we've come to the full build out of Snoqualmie Ridge, we have less and less flexibility to have choices on where some of these uses go, and we can't dictate when the market will bring something like that forward. And so this was literally the last lot available on the entire Snoqualmie Ridge phases 1 and 2 where we could build that use. But it's a significant benefit for the city because it services the business park, anchor for that. It's an anchor for the retail center, services residents, and also provides that way to capture the tourists and visitors that come through Snoqualmie. So for other development projects that I'll do separate videos on each one, but I just wanted to give you the context with part 1 and part 2 on this, is the Hilton Hotel. I spoke a little bit about that and the efficacy of that. The Safeway that's coming in, expect to open in August 1st of this year, the Bartels drugstore, of course. The Salish expansion, which was actually given entitlements on over 15 years ago, or some 13, 14 years ago, and then which has been delayed due to recession and other issues in the market, and then lastly the mill site, which I spoke about briefly. And again, I'll do another video that will go into more detail. But all told, the importance of these projects is the 2 that are in the works, the hotel and the Safeway, are going to garner upwards of about $750,000 of revenue for the city. And when you add the other 2 projects eventually to that would be another $750,000 to $1 million. Basically, all told, these 4 projects would bring about $1.5 million to $2 billion to the city of Snoqualmie, and it would more than close that gap and give us a buffer to address staffing increases, diversify our revenue portfolio. So the huge advantages is 1, keeps down significant pressures on property taxes and utility taxes. It gives us full control of our destiny. It means that we can pick and choose what sort of development comes in the future. We don't have to keep chasing more growth and development in Snoqualmie in order to keep the lights on and sustain city services or a high level of services. Again, it provides more services, as I stated, for the business park, the retail, and others, or these projects do. And lastly, it really helps establish Snoqualmie as a premier destination, which we already are, but we just want to make sure we're capturing dollars and benefiting you by doing that. So thank you for taking the time, and if you have the time, please go look at some of the other videos.